Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Again, has to be careful of the speed.
What a comeback season for Hal Sutton.
Come right back toward the hole.
Come on in. That's the second eagle he's made it for this week.
17 years later, Hal Sutton is the Players' champion.
He's got it going right at the flagstick. It'll be up. It is.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Be the Right Club Today podcast. Hal, how was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. We went to Shreveport and enjoyed the family and came back to our life down here in Houston.
How was the turducken?
The turducken was good, really good. And, I'm not as wild about duck, but, the three ingredients together is pretty, it's got a little bite to it. It's pretty good.
That's so interesting. I'm gonna have to try some next year. You got me.
Yeah.
You completely stumped me last week on the turducken. I was not ready for that.
You better get on the list because they're pretty popular.
So I'm usually the one that loses my razor and doesn't, not completely clean shaven. And not, I've known you for 5 or 6 years and never seen any scruff. You got some scruff. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I got on the scales on Friday when I got back down here after Thanksgiving, and I was completely put out with where I was at in my life. And I needed to lose some weight. I needed to be incentivized to do it. And I hate this. And I used to grow it whenever I was hunting, and I couldn't wait to shave it off because it itched all the time. So I was sitting around thinking about, okay, what could I do that every time I was inclined to take another bite that made me think, when am I going to be able to get rid of this? And it immediately came to my mind, okay, let's grow a beard. And trust me, I've lost 9 pounds since Friday of last week, and it's only Wednesday. So I've been incentivized to do this.
I love that word. I wish I could be. My goal is to be in better shape for next year because I'm going to play some more golf and all that. And unfortunately, me growing a beard doesn't incentivize me to go get in the gym and go lift some weights. I wish it did. It would it'd make it easier on me.
Well, you got to figure out what it is that'll do that.
Something my wife telling me I'm fat and out of shape isn't helping. She's not. I guess that's not enough incentive yet. So we'll see. I guess I got to get her to be meaner to me. Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. It's a good little segue for what we're going to talk about today. You've put a plan or you have a goal, so you're putting a plan in place to reach that goal to lose some weight. And we get asked a couple of questions we get asked in here all the time. How do I be more consistent? Which, in our opinion, consistency doesn't really exist in golf. You're going to be inconsistent even when you get better. There's still going to be some inconsistency in your game. It's just too hard. But the other thing is how do I improve? How do I get better? And we talk about inventory all the time, and you covered it a lot in Let's Talk Golf. And I think it's so important to know your game and know your strengths and weaknesses, because if you're going to improve, you're going to have to pick one of your weaknesses. You're going to have to pick something to try to lower that handicap. But talk Hal a little bit about the people that come in here and ask you the questions on how to improve. Just big picture stuff. How do we get better at this crazy game?
Well, first of all, saying big picture is the correct way to phrase it to begin with, because everybody comes in here is different, and how to get better would be different for everybody. But here's the one common thing that I think we could say to everybody, and we do pretty much say to everybody, is do an evaluation of what you do well and what you don't do well, and let's pick one thing that we can get better at. Every time I attacked multiple things, I never got better. And, we get so result oriented in golf. And, when I say result oriented, the ball is telling us whether we did it correctly or not is what the result is. But that's not always true. You know that. I know that. But I'm not sure every listener out there knows that. And, the one thing we've learned being inside like this is, we can't depend on the ball to tell us whether we did a good job or not. We've got video, we've got TrackMan, we've got all the things that tell us whether we did it right. And, I love not even showing them where the ball went. I love making them figure out where it went by feel. And, my goal would be to pick one thing that I would get better at. In my case, I want my launch angle to be lower. So I'm working on launch angle. And, I know what I have to do to make the launch angle come down. So, I don't care what the ball does. I want the launch angle down. And then when I get the launch angle down consistently, well, then I'll worry about where the ball's going.
So when you talk about one thing, are you talking more about one thing in your motion, one thing and you mentioned it with launch angle, but because to me, there's a couple of different conversations here. You take a full inventory of your game and let's just say, I like to use the analogy like we're 10 handicaps. And then, so we look at our driving, we drive at like a 7 handicap. We look at our iron play, we iron play at like a 5 handicap. Well, we've got some big weaknesses somewhere. It's coming, right? It's either we're a terrible putter, we don't chip and putt it, or we don't chip it very well. Our mental game's horrible, whatever it is. So do you also agree that you need to pick one thing in that kind of broad spectrum analysis of your game to work on too?
Yes, I do. Here's another analogy for you. Right now, if I miss my target, I miss it left all the time. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of right-handed golfers out there that are older that are in the same boat, miss it to one side or another. So my goal right now is to miss it right, instead of miss it left. Now, if I miss it right, is that a success or a failure?
Success.
It's a success if I missed it right. But see, most people would see that as, oh, that's a bad failure. I'd rather take this other over here. Well, you're never going to change anything like that. So, what I need to do is to take out the lefts entirely, miss it right for a while, and then work on bringing the ball back to the center. I think that's probably something you're gearing towards.
100%. I mean, your bell curve is skewed too far to high lefts, to high pulls. Not necessarily high, but it is high because that's what you're working on, bringing ball flight down. So you need to sit there, and you're good at hitting pulls. You need to get better at hitting pushes. And so a way for you to do that is, and that's what I was going to echo. I was going to say, look, Hal Sutton, one of the best players to ever play the game, isn't trying to hit it dead straight right now. He's trying to hit low pushes. If he can get that thing to start a little bit right, he knows, that you can bring it back. And it's going to take time, and it's not, I mean, that's the whole thing. And it was actually interesting. I was watching a live lesson this morning from a friend of mine in California named Dana Dahlquist, good instructor. He's on, on all the lists and all that stuff. And he was giving a kid a lesson live. He had it videoed on Instagram, and he said something about the kid made a good swing and hit in Dana's eyes, and he didn't hit it very good. And it went left or something. And Dana goes, great job, great job. He goes, it's funny. 20 years ago, I would have been sweating every ball that didn't go exactly where we wanted it to go as a teacher. He goes, now I do not care where the golf ball goes. And I was just sitting there laughing because we do the same thing. It's like, if you're going to make a change, you can, I think, Jim Hardy, I was a big fan of Jim Hardy and his group, but he always says you should hit the next one better. And I mean, that's tough. I mean, if we're always band-aiding, we're never going to really make a change. And so if you're going to work on something, you have got to let go. You've got to have a goal in place, but you got to let go of assessing it based off pass or fail on every shot, because you're chasing a moving target. It's impossible.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, the Band-Aid thing. When we were playing the tour and trying to make money out there were many times that a Band-Aid is all I really wanted to get through the next 3 days or 2 days or whatever it was. But for everybody listening out there that's not trying to play the tour, not trying to make a living playing golf, let's not look for a Band-Aid. Let's look for the real fix. Let's get to the bottom, the core of what's wrong, and let's fix that. Let's live with some bad results, knowing that we're not going to hit every shot exactly like we want as we make this change, but knowing eventually we are going to get there. And, you know, if you need feedback from every swing that you make through a good result, this is going to be a hard game for you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So you've talked a bit about swing change stuff, changing the motion. How long does it take?
Well, don't you think that depends on how much time you have and how much effort you can devote to becoming a better player?
Yeah, and it also depends on what we're trying to change. You know, like, is it just a little setup thing, or is it a grip change, or what? You know, what is it? It's such a loaded question, but again, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, three or four pods ago. But you know, it always, the change, to own the change always takes longer than we all think. Always. Me as a player, it took me longer. Me as a coach, it takes longer than I think. And as you know, okay, let's talk about it from a handicap level. Do you think it's easier for high handicaps to change or lower handicaps to change?
That's still a loaded question. It's probably easier for a higher handicap to change with some time, would be my guess. The lower handicap, the change will be more difficult. It'll require more time because you've got a lot invested into your swing to be a low handicapper. So you've got a trust factor there. You've got a known product. As a low handicapper, the higher handicapper doesn't really have a known product, so to speak. I mean, every shot's different for them.
Right. Completely agree. I mean, the better the player, they've got more reps. Their neural pathways in their brain, to get all nerdy on us, the neural pathways in their brain are much more wider paved, and they've made way more reps doing it their way, and they've got equity built up. And the higher handicap's desperate, and you know, will do it. It's just easier for them to make some of the changes. So let's go back to this idea of how do we improve? How do we go about deciding what to improve? And then for the people at home that are listening at home that have, you know, real jobs and don't have as much time, how do we, how does that look? How do we help them improve and help them manage their time and pick and choose the right battles?
Well, first of all, we were talking about this earlier, where we were talking about handicaps. Help me with this. We were talking about the guys with the that always think they're hitting the ball good, but yet they don't score well.
Yeah, so that's a 10 handicap who hits it like a 5, but still shoots 82 every time, 82 to 5 every time he plays.
To me, there's a lot of room for that guy to improve. If he's hitting it good, he's either not thinking very well, or he is something's wrong besides his ball striking if he's hitting it well. I think in order for that guy to get better, that's at the house, that has a normal job, he has got to really evaluate where he's at in his game. I mean, you can't fix everything that's in it, so let's pick one part. And whatever time you do have to work on it, let's devote some time to that. I've talked about it on here a lot. I can't say it enough. I've never seen anybody improve their weakness and forget their strength, and their strength still stay strong. So, I mean, one of the things that I would emphasize in here is, please don't, whatever time you need to get better at a weakness, please don't take away time from your strength. Find a little extra time to work on the weakness. And, you know, I think what happens is, I've seen many players do this. They figure out what's wrong, where they have the most room for improvement, and they go to work on that, and then they stop everything else. I've done it myself recently. I was not chipping it very well. So every time I went to the golf course, I went straight to the green and worked on my chipping all the time. The next thing I know, I'm chipping it a little bit better and can't hit it a lick anymore because I neglected what I did so well. I took it for granted, and all of a sudden it's not there to help me anymore. So my scoring actually went down, meaning not as well. It went up. My scoring average would have gone up in that case. And I improved my weakness, but I became a worse player.
Yeah. Your strength was so good. And that was what, I mean, your ball striking was so good. And that's what made you a PGA Tour player. And you knew your weakness was short game. And so you try to work on your weakness a little bit. And now your strength isn't PGA Tour quality or Champions Tour quality, however you say it. So then your overall performance.
It's not any quality at all right now, to be honest with you.
That's like a reps
I mean,
at all,
the truth is, the truth is, I mean, this is really hard to talk to let me put it this way. We need to be talking to a 5 handicapper over here and a 15 handicapper over here, because we're not saying the same thing to each one of those guys.
Right.
And to actually put something into terms that both of those guys can listen to and gain from is pretty difficult in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about inventory, again, there's broad macro and micro versions of inventory. And the way I like to look at it, when you and I do assessments, this is what we always ask every person that comes in here. How would you rate the strengths of your games and the strength of your game and the weaknesses of your game? And, it goes back to this handicap question. You said a 15 or 20 handicap versus a 5 handicap. To me, if your ball striking is better than your handicap, then you need something like you need Hal Sutton to go caddy for you, to go help you make better decisions and get you to quit firing at pins, get you to think a little bit better on the golf course, probably get you to quit 3-putting. Because if 95% of the people that come in here want to hit it better. To me, it seems like everybody talks about, I want to hit it better. I want to hit it better. I want to hit it better. So if your performance with your ball striking is lower than your score, then your decision-making stinks. You need to quit making mistakes, quit making big mistakes, quit making doubles and triples, quit trying to make birdies on holes, make a bunch of pars. Again, just this amazed me, but a 20 handicap makes one less birdie than a scratch golfer. It's like 1.2 or something. So there's 20 shots difference or 19 shots difference based off the one birdie difference, but yet there's 19 shots between the two, because the scratch golfer is not making the doubles and triples and 10s that the 20 handicap is making. So for me, it's if you're a good ball striker, a better ball striker than you're scoring, then you got to make better decisions first and foremost. And you got to figure out how to do that. And that's where Scott Fawcett and those guys have done a good job with having some type of system in place.
Well, while you were saying all of that, I was sitting here thinking about when people come in and we ask them the question to assess their game and tell us what their strengths and weaknesses are. For every person that comes in here and knows exactly what that is without having to think about it, there's 100 that come in that have to think about it and clearly are not aware of it.
Yep.
So, I reflect back to when I went to people for lessons. I went there specifically for what I was trying to get. I knew exactly what I was trying to do, and I needed their help, their eyes, their knowledge to help me get there. I didn't go in there and say, what do we do? I didn't say I want to be better. I mean, in each and every case, I did want to be better, but I knew exactly what I needed to do to get better. And in most cases, if these people are really in tune with their game, they kind of know what it is. They got to be the CEO. I talk about this all the time in Let's Talk Golf. If you hit it like a 5, but yet you're a 15, you need to go get Let's Talk Golf, because that's all I talk about is how to get better. Yeah. And at that, thinking wise, if you hit it good, we've got to get better thinking. And, I think people just need to understand their game better. How do you help a teacher help you get better if you don't even understand your game?
Yep. No, it's so true. And it baffles me when we ask kids what their lowest score is and they look over at their dad and they're like, I'm like, well, wait, what? How do you not know what your lowest score is? Like it's our barometer to improving, to what we're talking about on here. You have to know. I mean, you immediately know that your miss is a pull. And if you're going to go get back into working on your game, you're going to work on that. Mine is similar. I've fought lefts for a long time, and I have worked on that for the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, that's what I work. If somebody handed me $1 million check and said, go play again, I'm going to work on controlling it off the tee and putting a little bit. Like immediately, that's where I'm going, because I know that that's what's going to would keep me from, having success trying to play again.
So can I say something here real quick? The first time I broke 50 on 9 holes, I knew exactly what I shot immediately. The first time I broke 40 on 9 holes, I knew exactly what I shot.
Yep.
The first time I broke par, I knew exactly what I don't care if I was 12 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old. I was that tied in and involved in my own golf game. And in order to get better, every one of y'all need to be that way.
Absolutely. The other thing I would say is, when we ask the question, how do we improve, or somebody comes in and we're asking them, okay, what do we want to work on? To me, I think you have to kind of, or at least most of the people, it comes down to these 2 categories. It comes down to scoring, or it comes down to ball striking. And, we've talked about the guys that hit it better than they score. They need to work on scoring. They need to go play the front tees. They need to go, try and shoot 60 from the front tees. We've been saying it on here all the time. We say it to all of our kids. Bryson DeChambeau at the top 100 summit was on a video call, and he said he shot 58 when he was 15 from the red tees. He played the red tees for like 3-4 straight weeks, trying to shoot as low. He learned how to score before he really learned how to, hit it so far or do all the other stuff. For the guys that don't hit it as well, and these are the guys that we tend to see more in here, what do you have to do, right? You have to make some swing changes. And this is where, and you said something interesting. You said to us and some of our instructors here at the Academy, you said that how many of us have worked on something and we went down the wrong path, and it took us a while to even figure that out. And that's the tricky part with swing changes. Swing changes are always tricky. But if we're going to hit it better, if we're hitting it bad, if we're a chronic slicer or chronic hooker or whatever it is, we hit big hooks, we got to make some changes. Talk about that a little bit, because it can be tricky, especially the better you are.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I need to say that there is nothing written in stone that we can all look to as a Bible of how to get better. I mean, from a golf swing wise or anything else. And, there were many times that I had an instructor tell me that, hold on one second. Hold the thought. I got to plug in the phone.
Uh-oh, phone dying.
Yeah.
You're keeping us on a cliffhanger. You said that you had one instructor tell you.
All right. I'm back in business here. I had one, I'd go in and an instructor would tell me, this is what you need to do. Well, that's what he thought I needed to do. And we didn't know for sure if that was going to take me to fame and fortune, or if it was going to take me down the primrose path of destruction. I had to start down that path and see where it took me. And sometimes it wasn't clear for a while. Sometimes, if you're pretty good with your hands, and I was pretty good with my hands, I could kind of control where the face went for a little while. I could even do it under pressure for a little while, but it didn't take long before the body wanted to go one direction, the hands and arms wanted to go another direction. And all of a sudden the result of the shot wasn't nearly as good as I wanted. And, sometimes it might be a week or 2 that I figured that out and I needed to go a different direction. Sometimes it was a year. And, I know people out there don't want to hear that, but sometimes we don't know. We'll get a long ways down a path before we actually figure out this may not be what's best for me.
This is such a fascinating discussion for me too, because, we'll tell people like we don't have all the answers. We like to think we do, but and you know, but you've got the playing resume that would, you know, basically is a better playing resume than anybody else that's coaching on the planet today. And you know, I've got the X's and O's swing mechanic resume, and we feel like together there's very few people, very few groups in the country that can offer what we can offer, and yet we still tell students that we don't have 100. We're not going to get everything right. We're making educated guesses, and to me that's so. We'll never get it completely right. There's still going to be Webb Simpsons, and there's still going to be Jim Furyk's, and there's still going to be different motions that have all the success in the world that doesn't look quite right. My question to you is, and we actually had a PGA Tour player come in about a month ago in a similar boat that you were in whenever you were struggling at your story you've told about you and your dad out after Vegas. If you went back to that time, and we can kind of hem-haw or talk a little bit about, you know, the PGA Tour player that came in. Is it physical? Is it mental? If it's both, what percentage of both is it? You know, did you need a shrink more than you needed an X's and O swing instructor? Did you need a little bit of both? I know you weren't hitting it very good, but like, because to me, we got asked by a neuroscientist what percentage of golf was mental. And my first reply was, it depends on the level, depends on the player, it depends on how good. If it's a tour player, I think it's 90 to 95% mental. If it's a 30 handicap, I think it's 7 to 10% mental. I think they've got to get the physical stuff right. And as they get better at the physical stuff, it will become more and more mental and more and more mental and more and more mental. But going back to where you were, I kind of rambled a little bit, but going back to where you were in Vegas, is it a mental thing that you needed to improve, or was it a physical thing that you needed to improve, or was it both?
It was both. But let me tell you where it started, with a commitment to something.
Okay.
I changed up what I was doing. And
so back up. How, so where you got into the dark place was because you changed what you were doing, or how you got out of the dark place was you changed what you were doing?
Both.
Okay.
I went down a path of trying to get more tilt and get more from the inside, and
would you say was that,
you know, I was listening.
Sorry to interrupt you, but was that just based off the time? Like, was that based off the let's say the era you were in, where that's what everybody was trying to do? Because for a while it was get underneath it and swing to right field and hold the lag and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's my point. You know that Hal Sutton can't get right here because my anatomy won't let me do it. Well, I was trying to force doing that, and I'd lose it way right. And then when I got sick of that, then I'd fire my arms and hit it way left.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went for 10 years and didn't hit it out of bounds on the tour. And then all of a sudden, right and left were both in play for me. I mean, I was freaking out. So I said, okay, here's what I know to do. I am going to start hitting draws constantly. I'm going to catch it from the inside. I'm going to work the face, and I'm going to control. I'm going to start hitting it right, start hitting it with a draw out there. And that's what I went home and worked on for a month. I committed to that. Hit nothing but 7 irons doing that. Hit probably 75% shots, making sure that I was coming from inside to out, and I was having forearm rotation, shaft rotation, whatever you want to call it. I was working the face of the club, hitting push draws, basically. And, you know, I had something I could count on when I went back out on the tour. And that's what I hung my hat on, was that one shot. And, you know, if I got a back right pin, I didn't force the issue. I said, okay, I'll take it 25 feet to the left and take my chances. If I got a back left pin, I said, okay, I'm coming after you. But see, then I started using my mental side of my game. Once I had something I could count on, well, then I would use the mental side of my game to learn how to score, knowing when to go and when not to go, when to hit the brake and when to hit the accelerator. You know, so many people don't even understand that. They're always on the accelerator, or they're always on the brake. You know, to me, playing golf is like driving a car. You got a steering wheel right here. You got a brake and the accelerator. The best players that create if you're a race car driver, the guys that create the lowest time are the fastest, is knowing when to be on which. Yep. And where to cut the corners at. You know, golf is much the same way. And, you know, I can't give you a better analogy on that than that.
No, it's perfect. And again, so yours, when you were way out of whack for you, it was you had to change something physical. You had to add some physical pieces to it. And then once you found something that you began to trust, then it became a bit more mental. And then you could start to make some small little adjustments and kind of run with it a little bit. Do you agree with that?
So this is really, yes, this is really interesting, Chase. So think about this. I spent a year trying to get here. So here is less face rotation, catching it from the inside by having my elbow staying close, my right elbow staying closer to my side.
Yeah, more forward.
Couldn't control.
Trying to get it more forward, which would open the face more and cause you can't,
exactly.
You couldn't physically get it. Like for those listening at home, Hal was taught at one point in the middle or early on in his career, he was taught to try and drive the elbow more forward, more Hogan-esque, more DJ-esque, Dustin Johnson-esque. And that's external rotation of the shoulder. And he can't make that motion. We've tested him a million times and he's got none of that. His elbow has to stay back a little bit more than what was being taught at the time.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with this. So I proved I couldn't do it through failure. That's really important that I say that, through failure, which meant I spent way too much time trying to do something that I couldn't do. But I had to go down that path a real long time before I could prove to myself I can't do it, because, I thought I could do anything when it came to a golf swing. I'm sure that covers a lot of y'all out there listening to this podcast right now too. Well, here's the truth. I couldn't do it. So what did I do? I went back trying to get it from the inside, forearm rotation, face rotation. And where does the right elbow go when you do that? Out. So I knew Hal Sutton. I knew what I could do. That was against what the instructors wanted to do, but I had to make a call because I was trying to make a living doing this. It was also what supported my ego. I had an ego as a golfer. I had a reputation I had to live up to, and I certainly wasn't living up to that reputation. They were writing, "What's wrong with Hal Sutton?" Lost his card. And so what did I do? I went back to what I knew how to do. And, this is interesting because the last time I talked to Ben Hogan, I'm walking into the pro shop at Shady Oaks, and Ben Hogan sees me. Let me back up a little bit where y'all can see what I'm doing. Ben Hogan says, "Hal, what is wrong with your golf game?" And he says, I said, "Well, if I knew, Mr. Hogan, I'd fix it right now." He puts the door aside and he stops and puts his arms right out here in front of him and takes a grip with no club. And he said, "Hal, it's right here. Did you see what my arms did? Watch this, right here." He did not do this. And that's what everybody says he did. That's what it looks like he did. But he thought it was this. That's what he said to me. Is that not amazing? That is maybe the greatest ball striker that ever lived. Listen, what I just told y'all is really magical. I hope y'all listen to what I just said, because he thought he did something different than what he actually did.
Right.
And he told me that thinking it was going to help me. So that ought to bring everything, some clarity to everything. Though maybe the greatest player that ever swung a golf club thought he did something different than he did.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, done. I can't, I don't even have a whole lot to say to that, but it's so interesting to me too, because as instructors, there's, we've been trying to take the hands, our network of people, of teachers have been trying to take the hands out of the golf swing. And Ben Hogan just said, it's all in the hands and all in the arms and all in what holds the club. And that's what we were asked last week, I think, is it hands or body, or is it, is the swing from the ground up or from the shoulders down or upper body down? And for me, having your arms in sync with whatever, with everything else that's going on is by far the most important thing. Touch on.
Can I ask a question real quick before we get off that subject?
Sure.
I want your opinion on this. I have mine, obviously, but I want yours first. Do you think you can ever take the hands out of the golf swing? No. See, I don't either. And I mean, I think when somebody tells you it's more body than it is hands, or arms, I'm going to tell you that it may be for you, but it is never no hands and no arms.
Mm-mm.
And sometimes as a golfer, we think it's all or nothing. And I will guarantee you, your hands are the most important thing you have to the golf swing. And sometimes they're going to be less involved, and sometimes they're going to be more involved. You agree with that, Chase?
100%. There's a group out that teaches what we would call passive arms, and I think that's a great feel. And I think if you like how when you felt passive arms when you were playing your best, to me that's the best feel. But it meant your arms were keeping up. They weren't passive. They were actively firing and moving, and they were just in sync, and it felt passive to you. But this idea that the arms don't do anything, like I can sit here and turn my body all I want, my arms are going to sit still. But if I move my arms in a decent manner, my body's going to move. And again, it's the only thing that holds the club. Our hands hold the club. The club's not going to move unless the hands move, and the hands aren't going to move just because the body moved. Like they're just not. So to me, in a perfect world, it's a 50-50. The arms are 50% of the effort, and the body's 50% of the effort. You know, we talked about this last week, and I've used it a couple times this week in the lessons, because I asked you this question. I said, how if I said that we use the hands and the arms for speed, and we use the body for support, especially the lower body, you know, the belly button up for speed and the belly button down for support, what would you say? And you're nodding, and you nodded last week and said you would totally agree. And to me, that's the goal. Our lower body supports everything that's going on. Do we use it to jump and for power? 100%. But there's a lot of people that can swing really fast off their knees and don't need their body to do anything crazy. And I think the body's just been overtaught. I really do.
Well, I especially think the legs have been overtaught. You know, we've seen hip drive and leg drive create monumental problems for the youth of America. And
no stability.
You know, I played my best when I had great weight transfer, but at the right time. And if I tried to overdo any of the weight transfer, it messed up everything up top too. And, you know, perfect legs in sync is what we're looking for, which I would call support.
Yep. And to even to like your swing, to you, like you and I've been playing around or talking about how you can use your legs and use your body a little bit, lower body a little bit differently, but it's hard to play golf that way. Like I've been asking you to load a little bit differently because, you know, you got left knee issues and left hip issues. And so it's hard for you to post up as hard as you used to. And trying to make that change and hit a ball on the ground, like thinking about your feet is a tough way to play golf. It just is. And even though we're asking players to make that movement. So it's just, to me, if I can get one segment to be educated, man, give me a good arm swing and we can make the lower body do some cool stuff.
That brings me to another point. Let me make this point real quick. If any of y'all have pain out there, any place, you need to have it evaluated. Because if your swing is not doing what you want it to do and you have pain, most likely the pain is causing you. I've lived this life for the last 15 years. You know, I had pain in my left hip that wouldn't let me do what I wanted it to do. So I tried to force my left knee to rotate, which they're not built to rotate like that. Tore the labrum, ended up having both those joints replaced. So because I was trying to force something that wouldn't work. So if you're struggling with a swing change out there and you have pain, I know Chase would echo this 1,000%. I've been around him too much. I know this. His wife is a physical therapist, so he preaches this on a daily basis. So get the pain evaluated and see if you can eliminate the pain, or understand the pain and try to work with it, basically, which is what we're trying to do in my golf swing.
Yep. 1,000%. Let's talk about a really tough subject, and it kind of goes back to what you were talking about a little bit around your struggles after the Vegas tournament. So we identify that ball striking is a weakness, so we need to become a better ball striker. How do we give a swing change enough time? How do we know when we're going down the wrong path?
Chase, you asked me all these difficult questions, you know. So for me, and I'm not sure I can answer this for anybody else other than me. I had to give it enough time that I never saw any improvement. You know, I could understand that maybe for a week or something like that. I mean, it was my job. Understand, first of all, it was my job. So I'm spending 8 hours a day doing this. So as you're listening to what I'm about to say, if you don't have 8 hours a day to do this, well, then this may not work for you. But if I didn't see any improvement after I had spent a 40-hour work week trying to make this change and didn't see some improvement, then I didn't feel so good about continuing down that path. Now, I said 40 hours. How long does it take each and every one of y'all to give something 40 hours when it comes to golf? That's to be considered right there. If I saw a little bit of improvement at the end of that 40 hours, I stayed on the path to see if I could get better at it. If I didn't see any improvement at all, but didn't see any regression, well, then I might stay on it. But I was always under the pretense that if I couldn't see a little bit of improvement in a full week of working on it, then maybe it wasn't for me. I mean, most of the things that really helped me, I saw some pretty immediate differences. Did you?
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question on that. Was it always were you always trying to make a change for ball flight reasons? Like, do you remember, like, you and Jimmy or whoever, you and Floyd in your prime working on different movements? Was it to get rid of certain types of shots? Was it to make your good shots better? What was let's identify the reason that you changed or tried to change.
It was to change ball flight most of the time.
Okay. So with Mr. Ballard, the miss was it still a pull? Was the miss left then too?
Yeah.
Okay, so
left.
you show up to Florida, you're griping about the pulls, and so he's given you some of his stuff to try to get you to quit pulling it, basically.
Yeah.
And so you go down, which 40 hours, I would even put the over. You're going to give it a week, which a week for you playing is 7 days. You're probably not going to take a day off when you're grinding at this in season. So it's really 56 hours. And for most people out there, 56 discipline hours is done over the course of 2 months at best, an hour a day at best. And probably more like 3 months. So you dive in for a week and you're still, you feel like you're making the correct motion, and you look up and you're still fighting that pull. Do you then go into your bag of tricks? Do you tell Jimmy he's full of it and doesn't know what he's talking about, and he needs to give you something else? How did Hal Sutton, the player, handle it?
Hal Sutton, the player, went into my bag of tricks at that point because I had to make it happen. He had all. I mean, that it's not. It's hard to blame any teacher for anything that happens on the golf course because, I mean, we see this all the time in here. People can't control their speed in here. And you get on the golf course and you can't control it even more so. I can control my speed in here because I'm looking at a number and I'm wanting the number to be that, and I know how to turn center to go slower or go faster. But most people can't slow down. When we ask them to slow down in here, they can't. When they get on the golf course, they go even faster. So, when you go faster, the release changes, everything changes when you go faster. So I can't say that Jimmy ever wanted me to, I don't know that it was his fault that I was hitting it left. I think it was my lack of being able to control my speed at the time. I'm trying to, the analogy of the race car driver, I'm trying to cut every corner. I'm trying to be on the accelerator all the time that I can be on the accelerator and never on the brake. And, if I had anything to say to a player, I'm 63 years old now. So most of my golfing life is in my rear view mirror. And if I had anything to say to a player, in order to become a better player, I didn't say a better swinger, or I didn't say a better putter. I said to become a better player. Then you don't need to drive as fast all the time. You don't need to cut every corner in order to become a better player. But see, a lot of people think they got to get more speed and they got to take more risk in order to become a better player. And I would say, honestly, it might be the opposite of that, to become a better player. And that's a lot different than a better swinger or a better putter. I'm talking overall player, scoring better.
Score better, correct.
Score better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I look back at my career, and I've said this a lot on here. My filter wasn't tight enough when it came to, like, I thought the next instructor knew everything, and I thought if I did what they asked me to do, it was that movement, that change in movement pattern was going to help me make it to the PGA Tour. And to me, knowing what I know now, that couldn't have been further from the truth. My inventory and my assessment of each shot, I would say my assessment of self wasn't very good. I've always said I blamed my mechanics over everything. And knowing what I know now, like, my commitment level was horrible. And so for me, when I decided, like, I fought hooks when I was in college, more so pulls when I was trying to play. But what I would have told my 25-year-old self, now 24, 23-year-old self, after I got out of college, I would have done more of what you're trying to do with your motion now. I would have said, go out and hit pushes. Just hit 100 pushes in a row. Hit 100 shots that go right of your target. Figure out what you have to do that, because now you're building up an inventory of tricks that work for you rather than somebody else saying it to you or trying to get you to do some feel. I always thought, you talked about the right elbow and some of the movements. I always thought that a movement pattern change was going to change my life. And knowing all that now, like, I got to a level that the only thing that was going to change my life was me being more consistent with my mental game and maybe working on getting my body in a better position physically, but not swing physically, but more like in shape and making sure I wasn't set up for injury or anything like that. But I gave coaches too much credit. I thought that they could fix my golf swing and make me hit it perfect, and I would be the next Hal Sutton or be competing against you 15 years ago or whatever. And it wasn't the case at all. It's so bass backwards.
So here's something you said. Something you thought the next instructor was going to give you everything they said was right and going to reform you in some sort of way,
right?
And that's the easy way out.
Yep.
And, I've talked about this a lot on here. I talk about it a lot in here to kids, some of our best players. One of the things that I preach to them constantly is take responsibility for your golf game. Each and every time I fixed my golf game, I did it. No one else did it. I had to take responsibility of my game. And Chase, I spent a career of saying, here, take over. Here, take over. Here, take over. Guess what? No one was capable of taking over my golf game. The only person that was capable of taking over my golf game was me. I knew it. I worked at it 8 hours a day. I knew what I needed to do, but I didn't want the responsibility of it. I'd rather someone else take the responsibility. So I had someone else to blame. And, if there's anything, listen, you can't do it without another set of eyes. You can't do it without video. Kids are so lucky today that they have all of the devices that they have, TrackMan and cameras that can see where the club face is at, and all of the things that we have available to us today. Take advantage of all of that. Never give up the responsibility of your game to anybody else. And, that's especially true for a good player. If you're a 15 handicapper and you can't really evaluate where you're at, then turn the responsibility over to someone until you start getting better, and then you assume the responsibility of it. You agree with that?
I do. I think a 30 handicap, a 20 handicap, even a 10 handicap I can take over their game and make all the decisions for them. But I think you get down to 2 or 3 to scratch to plus, we say it all the time in here, a +4 golfer, amateur golfer comes in here. I'm going to ask them a ton of questions. I'm going to see who all they've worked with. I'm going to pick their brain. They might hit 10 shots in front of me for an hour in the first lesson, just because I got to get to know them, and I've got to measure a million times and cut once. That 20 handicap comes in here. He's making one swing, and it's like, okay, you're over the top, or you're this or that. And we got things to fix. So no, I completely agree. And again, I would agree with everything you said about me too. Like I would blame myself too much, but I also didn't look internal to fix my issues and my inventory taking. I never even assessed. I mean, I talked to some sports psychologists and stuff, but I just didn't understand it enough to know how limiting it was. And what's funny is the worse I started to play on the mini tours, the more I spent time on the range and quit playing golf and like almost avoided all that stuff because I didn't want to play bad. And now I look back and I would have spent way more time on the golf course. And that's something I would echo to all you guys out there. Like, tour players play a ton of golf, and especially growing up. Like it's golf. It's less range. And the range is going to tend to give you a false sense of hope, because you're going to get in that rhythm on the range and hit it really good and think, oh, I figured it out. And you get on the first tee and you're like, oh, I don't have this figured out at all. And it goes to hell. So for me, looking back, yeah, my inventory and my filter would have been tighter. I wish I would have known more about inventory in my own game from both a very general level, but then a very detailed level. And I would have spent more time more time building my self-belief and telling myself I was good enough to do it. And then it wasn't always a golf swing thing. I needed to be more precise with my plans, and I needed to be better at evaluating the bad shots and be more likely to blame my lack of commitment versus an issue in my golf swing.
So let me ask you a question. I think this is really important for everybody out there listening. Did you ever go to the range that you weren't looking for something?
No. Very, very, very.
Say that one more time. You were looking for something.
Yeah.
I never knew a golfer that went to the range that wasn't looking for something. Now, you were either looking to loosen up. If you were playing really well, all I'm looking to do is loosen up. If you weren't playing very well, you were looking for something. You didn't know what that something was. You thought you knew what that something was. So the reason why I bring this up is, I'd play a really good round on the tour, and my dad might be following me. So, you want to go to the range? You're going to hit some balls? No, I'm not. And well, so-and-so's over there hitting balls. I said, he's looking for something. I'm not looking for something. I just shot 64. If I go to the range and I hit one bad shot, all of a sudden I put something in my mind that says, is that my future? Think about that, what I just said. If you play good, self-belief, we did a whole segment with Paul Azinger about self-belief versus confidence. Here's what I know. You hit that one bad shot at the wrong time, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be in your mind for a little while. And so, Harvey Pinnock said to me a long time ago, never hit more than 2 or 3 drivers on the practice round, on the practice tee before you go out, because a man doesn't have but 15 good drivers in him. So, when you hit 20 or 25 drivers on the tee, you've already wasted a lot of energy. You've given yourself a lot of opportunity to hit a bad shot that you may have to face on the first tee. So, to me, if you want to become a better player, you got to go play. If you want to swing at it better, you'll find that on the practice tee. You'll hone it on the golf course.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about blocking random practice, and if you're making swing changes, that's where that, Hal talked about 56 hours, that he spent in a week hitting golf balls. You need to block practice for that long, over the course of 3 or 4 months on the range, making the change, changing the motion to see if it's going to work. And yeah, I would say too, if going back to the original question of how do we know if we're going down the wrong path? Number one, if an instructor asks you to do something, you've got to make sure you're physically capable of doing it. We do a bunch of tests in here to see if they can actually make the motion or not. If you can make the motion, then you got to pick the right time to do it, which is right now, which is in the off season when it's colder, and you've got to make a ton of reps. And that's where it's in the garage at home in a net where you can hit ball after ball after ball with no result, no worry about the outcome. And you've just got to make sure that it's disciplined. You know, we tell our kids all the time in here, we'd rather you make 100 disciplined swings than 500 undisciplined swings. And that means just make sure your mindset's in the right spot. Make sure your brain's locked in. You can't do it for 4 straight hours without, you know, your brain basically quitting on you. From there, once you can do it on the range, to your point, Hal, then you got to start taking it to the golf course. You got to start taking it to money games. You got to start testing it out a little bit. One of the things I would continue to echo is, if you're a ball striker and you're not scoring, again, go play the front tees, go play up, go figure out, if you're low round 75, your next goal is to shoot under 75 from the front tees. And we've been saying this forever. There's so many positives to this, because what's going to happen is you'll be even par with 5 holes to play and be thinking about being even par with 5 holes to play. Or you'll go out the first time from the red tees and shoot 85 and be so mad because you can't believe it wasn't so easy to shoot 70. But handling, you know, to score, handling your emotions, staying in the moment, one shot at a time, all that stuff that we've been talking about on here is so important. If you're making a swing change, being disciplined, giving yourself enough time, making sure you can make the motion, the correct motion, or making sure you're physically capable of making the motion, and then following up with your instructor to get some little feedback along the way, is the only way you're gonna physically do it. And understand that it's just going to take more time than you think it's going to, and your coach thinks it's going to.
Yes, I agree with every bit of that. I was sitting here thinking about something, Chase, that I feel like I'm compelled to talk about here. You know, we see a lot of people that come in here, especially people that are older than you, more my age, where at halfway back, the toe is straight up and down, which would be wide open. And they're that way because in the era that I grew up, that's what everybody thought it was supposed to be. That's what they taught was right, you know. So that meant that they had to work the face to get it square. They had to have forearm rotation. They rotated the shaft in order to square the face. You agree with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So to start Hal Sutton down a path of having a square club face, what the world would call a square club face at halfway back right now, really would cause problems in the downswing. I couldn't use the same downswing that I had always used because I would hit it left all the time doing that. So I think there's a lot of people between your age and my age listening to us out there right now. And I would say the closer you are to my age, and I'm 63 years old, the more you probably work the face. The younger you are, probably the less you work the face, and the more you are in tilt and rotate the body. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Okay. So with that knowledge, I can never become the new age player, nor can the new age player ever become me. I have to be me, and they have to become them. And I have to beat them with what I have, and they have to beat me with what they have. I still have to be me. So in order to convert my golf game into being them, probably means I'm going to be a worse player from it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you look at the Champions Tour, look at Champions Tour swings, and then look at their swings when they're on the PGA Tour. Almost 99% of them, their face is more open and they've got less rotation, less body rotation, 100%.
So the only reason why I bring this up is all you listeners out there, you need to evaluate which one of these two people you are. Anybody teaching you needs to teach you accordingly. They can't, I can't be remade. I can put a new paint job on me, but I can't change the body style.
Yep.
And I think that's really healthy for everybody out there listening to understand that. I think that cuts your path forward to being a better player by the knowledge of that.
Yep. Yep. Knowing, again, it's all about the inventory, knowing who you are, knowing your body type, knowing obviously your age and your ability and your range of motion and all that stuff is so important. The other thing I would continue to echo for the ball striker, the guys that need help hitting the golf ball, control your low point, control where the club hits the ground every time. And when you go to the range searching for something or looking for something, you have one goal in mind. What are we working on when we go out there? Because if your goal is to work on hitting it straight every time, you're gonna be changing after each shot. Oh, I pushed one, I didn't release my hands. Oh, I hooked one, I reverse pivoted. Oh, I hit one heavy, I kept my head down. And you've got 17 swing thoughts after 18 shots or 17 shots. And so for Hal Sutton to sit here and say he's going to go out or go work in the bay here and work on hitting pushes or low pushes, he's going to work on hitting it lower and pushing it. You'll work for an hour and a half straight, and that's the only goal. That's all you're going to do. The majority of you listeners, you're going to have 14, 25, 50 different swing thoughts trying to hit that perfect shot every time. Oh, I hit that one good. I felt my right pinky toe pushing into the ground. Maybe that's the next field to hit it as good as I can hit it. Right. And it's so nonsense. And I'm guilty of it. I did the same thing. It's so stupid. Our brain felt one thing, feel isn't real. And then we chase it. It's like, I got it. And then I always laugh because you get up on the first tee and you're like, nope, I don't got it.
But all of that is the reason why we love this game. It's so elusive. It's fleeting. You know, I got it today, I don't have it tomorrow. You know, that's why I still love the game. I still dream about shooting a good score. You know, Chase will tell you all, I'll go out and hit some balls, and I played yesterday on a par 3, and I hit some really good shots and I hit some really bad shots. You know, the ones I remember, the really bad ones. I don't remember the really good ones. You know, that's what it was supposed to be. Well, they're all supposed to be good in my mind. That's what I think. That's what you think. That's what you want.
Yeah.
That's what all golfers want.
Yeah. There's no such thing as consistency. Look at golf as a bell curve. And if you're averaging 85, that means your high rounds 100 and your low rounds 75. If you're averaging 70, your high round is 76 and your low round 63. But the bell curves looks just the same. And it's just on a sliding scale. As you get better, the scale moves, but the bell curve stays the same. And you know, again, going out, being specific with what you're trying to do, to me is the most important thing. You know, like you said, how when we go to the range, we're always looking for something, but be specific with what we're looking for. You can go out and practice your pre-shot routine. You can go out and practice your breathing. There's all sorts of ways that you can improve. And again, I'm going to echo one more time. For you guys that hit it pretty good, go get something like Decade, go get some type of stat, Mark Brody's stuff, go get something that keeps track of your stats so you really can take a solid inventory, and you know that you're not giving up shots from wedge distance because you're taking on too many flags. You're not doing anything stupid mentally that's just costing you shots that you never even thought about.
Well, I can't think of anything else today that we have that will help anybody be better. We see it all in here. We enjoy every person that comes in here. We do our best to help every person that comes in here. And each person is a different puzzle.
Yep. I love that. That's exactly right. If you're good at slicing it, figure out how to hook it. If you're good at hooking it, figure out how to slice it. It's not about hitting it perfect every time. It's about experimenting and not being afraid to over exaggerate a little bit until you kind of fine tune it to where it's not crazy either side of the coin. We talk about seesaws. We talk about being balanced. We talk about keeping it vanilla as much as you can. But if you're crazy on one side of the spectrum, you got to add some crazy on the other side of the spectrum to balance it out. Golf is all about balance. How you talk about all the time. We need room and time. We need to be balanced. And that's a great analogy for the whole spectrum of your game and not just your golf swing.
100%. Everybody get better. You know how now.
Thanks, guys. As always, we'll see you next time.
Be the right club today. Yes!